I have another hypothesis as to why people would be less likely to hire people who have gone through unpaid internships. It could also be in part because people more and more are becoming aware that unpaid internships are basically waste, and that the people who underwent the unpaid internship weren't actually trained in anything, and that employers are actually becoming savvy to this information and thus are less likely to hire someone from an unpaid internship.
From the article, it said many unpaid internships, while valuable to a company, are pretty useless for someone trying to learn actual career-building skills, and thus pretty useless for future potential employers. And I have a great example. Do you know the thing that actually started this whole talk about getting rid of unpaid internships? It's the interns for the people that worked in the Black Swan, right? Well, one of the Black Swan unpaid interns told the Atlantic Wire, quote, he spent much of his time staring at the wall. He did, quote, various office tasks, such as answering telephones, making photocopies, making deliveries, preparing coffee, getting lunch for paid employees, and other similar duties. Well, no wonder, because they're using these unpaid interns as slave bitches.
There's a story just this week out in the headlines, and I'm not sure if it was Canada or the U.S. I want to say it was Canada, but regarding unpaid interns, and it was about a young man who just died in a car crash because they were making him work double shifts. He was interning at a radio station, and they kept making him work double shifts and extra shifts, and again threatening him that they weren't going to, if he didn't comply with what they wanted him to do, they weren't going to get him, he wasn't going to get his credit and whatnot. So he was doing these things, and they have text messages between him and his girlfriend on the night he died where he's complaining about how they're making him work like this, and he's tired of it, and he doesn't know who to go to. And then after he finished his double shift, he was driving home, and he had a terrible car crash, and he died. And they are relating the death to him being overly worked.
Right, and like I said, it's not just overworking, because in order to do an unpaid internship, you still have to survive. You still have to be able to afford food. You still have to be able to afford gas if the place is far away. And I know a lot of
you're
people
wasting people's time. You're wasting people's energy that could be spent actually earning money.
And I know a lot of people who have had internships in places that, you know, because they're hard to find in this kind of job market, right? Even an unpaid internship is difficult to find, even in a growing field like the medical field. And these people have had to go an hour and a half out of their way to drive all the way there to do their internship. And that takes a tremendous amount of resources, a tremendous amount of gas. And if you're a student and you're an intern, you know, if you're a full-time student and you're an intern, that takes up all of your extra time. It takes up a lot of your extra time. How are you supposed to fit in a job in there so that you can be able to afford to do that internship?
As somebody who, you know, writes over 1,000 resumes a year for people for compensation, let me explain something to you about internships and how they work. I get polling from 3,000 to 5,000 human resource professionals continuously. When we update new models, you know, we try to keep constant communications with them to know what they want to see. And in the job market as it is today, and as it's been for the last several years, one of the biggest problems that they have is time. The human resources managers and departments in general, they don't have time to review these documents like people think they do. Some people want to put as much information in there as possible, and it's the wrong thing. They want simple, they want fast, they want that information in the first 2 paragraphs. After that, the rest is just highlightable. What did they have? Now, the remaining sections that have things like internships in them, because they also have employers in them, a lot of times our best advice is to drop that from the resume completely, and you have a better chance of getting hired in certain respects, because human resource department, imagine you're reviewing 300 of these a day. You're not going to read that it's even an internship or care or even take any notice to it. The only thing you're looking for is, okay, here's the employer list. It might say internship, and it might be clear that it does, but the only thing they're looking at, they're going down there highlighting some dates. Okay, oh, bad one. That's only a few months. Now, these look bad. When you're at an employer for only a few months, it looks bad, and they don't distinguish between whether it's an internship or an employer. And people could say, well, they should know the difference. Well, yeah, but when you're reviewing 300 documents a day and getting bombarded with resumes, you're not looking for small details like that. You're looking for, you want to read the first 2 paragraphs, and that's it. And the rest is just highlightable notes.
You can discuss your internship when you get an interview.
Right, exactly, and that's where you would be better off doing it. You want to show that you meet the minimum qualifications, and you want to show that you're not employer hopping, and that's what you want to put in there. And if you have a list of it, it kind of blends in with the employers real easily to show that you're employer hopping. It looks more negative than it looks positive when you have. And I've had people that insisted on listing all of their internships, and they've done 6 of them in college, so they have 6 jobs that started and ended the same damn year. That's terrible. I mean, it just looked like they were in jobs all over the place. You know, this is not the kind of thing that you want to include on normal documents. And human resources departments, they don't really care. They would be much better off if they were with the company for a couple years, or with several companies over that couple years, knowing that it was an apprenticeship. If you job hopped in, it doesn't matter, because they'll look at it differently. So I'm a huge fan of apprenticeship programs, and I'm a huge fan of dropping unpaid internships. I just think that to me it's the equivalent of hiring 10-year-olds. It's just an abomination to morality. I mean, you need to supply somebody some resource for providing to you, a resource. And
the common argument too is, yeah, but they're getting experience, and they're getting a foot in the door. They're getting, they're able to network. Those are the common things that we hear about internships in general, whether paid or unpaid, right? And the stuff that I've pointed out earlier throughout this study show that no, not necessarily. There are some instances, yes. 37% of people who do an unpaid internship get a job offer. That's great. Paid internships, 63%. That's great, because to me, it seems like a paid internship is more like a job, because you're actually paying somebody for their work. So if you're going to pay somebody for their work, you're not going to make them go out and do a coffee run. They're actually going to do something substantive, and they're going to learn the job. And so I absolutely agree with you guys. The unpaid internship, it's got to go. All right, you want somebody to get your coffee, get your own fucking coffee.
People will try to argue that, I've gotten valuable experience from it. Yeah, but you'd have got the same valuable experience and got some money in your pocket if you weren't being treated that way. You're being treated as slave labor, so you can't tell me that the value that you received in experience is anywhere near the value you would have received if you had the experience and compensation. And we're talking about a low compensation here, for an internship, paid training.